and welcome back to the Babel Boys podcast. So if you watched our last video, we touched on the potential voter fraud allegations. So today, I came across the dump of all the affidavits, it would seem. I'll link them down in the description. And I wanted to get into them, read a couple. Keep in mind that a lot of these are handwritten, and some people's handwriting is quite shitty. Second, none of these really identify specific voter fraud. It's more of circumstantial evidence, I would say. Mostly voter irregularities. That being said, in a free and fair election, you want to look over all of these things, right? I mean, that you want to validate that our process works. So I think it is important that we, as a nation, take this seriously and review all of these allegations. So we're going to get into some of these here. I'm going to skip the ones with the shitty handwriting because I don't want to sit here and struggle to read this. So we'll go down here. We'll find a typed one. Okay. Andrew John Miller, poll challenger. The table I was at was duplicating ballots and had about 25 ballots to duplicate. One poll worker held the original ballot and a second poll worker duplicated the ballot. The poll worker who duplicated the ballot hovered the ballot and blocked me from being able to see the duplication process. A third worker was blocking anyone from being able to see this duplication process. I informed the supervisor that I was denied access to see the duplication process and need to review the ballots for accuracy. I was informed that I couldn't because the duplication process was personal like voting. I watched them duplicate 3 or 4 ballots, and this happened on each ballot I watched. I challenged these 3 or 4 ballots, and the table worker refused to acknowledge my challenge. Okay. I saw roughly 24 computers on November 3rd, and every computer I saw had a red error message in the lower right-hand corner saying, "Update overdue." Additionally, not all of the computers indicated the correct time, with some being off by approximately 5 hours. All computers with the incorrect time were synchronized to show the same incorrect time. Okay. So, outdated software, I would say, could potentially cause some problems. So, Anna. I observed several irregularities, including an unattended ballot box, unidentified people coming in and out of the TCF Center, and a chaotic ballot counting process. There were several instances in which the poll workers used their bodies to prevent me from watching and observing the ballot counting process. Throughout the day, I witnessed a pattern of chaos, intimidation, secrecy, and hostility by the poll workers. Poll workers would cheer, jeer, and clap when poll challengers were escorted out of the TCF Center. There seems to be collaboration between the Democratic poll challengers and the city of Detroit poll workers. Who would have thought? Artisha Bomer, another Republican challenger. When I arrived, I, along with other Republican challengers, were told we needed to remain standing in one place and be 6 feet away from everyone. Eventually, we were told we could move around the counting room. I observed tables 123 and 120. At both table 123 and 120, I noticed USPS boxes of ballots beneath the table. I was able to observe that many of these ballots in the boxes were either straight-ticket Republican or had votes for Donald Trump. These ballots seemed to be separated from the rest of the ballots being counted. I witnessed a meeting between election worker team leads where they gathered together and spoke. This meeting ended in a cheer. Many of these team leads wore masks or other materials supporting Black Lives Matter or other political causes. At approximately 11:43, I heard one of the team leads yell, "This is our house tonight," at approximately midnight. I heard this same man say racist remarks about black people who support Donald Trump. I believe these remarks were directed at me. I mean, we've seen that in the past. That's definitely something that happens. Black people have been targeted repeatedly, even in recent past for supporting Donald Trump. I mean, you heard Joe Biden. If you don't vote for him, you ain't black. I mean, that should tell you all you need to know there. I witnessed election workers open ballots with Donald Trump votes and respond by rolling their eyes and showing it to other poll workers. I believe some of these ballots may not have been properly counted. I don't think that's that far-fetched. I observed a station where election workers were working on scanned ballots that had issues that needed to be manually corrected. I believe some of these workers were changing votes that had been cast for Donald Trump and other Republican candidates. I observed ballots with cursive writing notes at the top right-hand corner. I observed approximately 500 ballots with this writing. These ballots did not have ballot codes on them. That doesn't make much sense. At approximately 4:03 a.m., a poll worker announced that 50 boxes of ballots were coming in. Election workers loudly cheered this announcement. At approximately 4:50, I witnessed a man spraying a chemical on a ballot counting machine. He then placed 27 ballots at the machine, and I noticed tape on the top of the ballot where a ballot number would normally be. Throughout the night, I witnessed him insert these same 27 ballots at least 5 times. That's suspicious. At approximately 5:15 a.m., an announcement came in for counters to clean their tables. Ballots were still throughout the counting room. So she did not observe the 50 new boxes. There were no bag checks for anyone taking or bringing ballots. So Betty Tyson, we're going to skip you. Beverly. Let's see what Beverly has. While observing the table 50, I witnessed several irregularities where ballot numbers did not match what was in the voter files. I was approximately 6 feet away from the table, except when I needed to get closer to observe. I proceeded to take down my own personal notes when a floor supervisor immediately approached me and in an authoritative manner told me I was not social distancing. I responded that he was also not social distancing. There were several instances in which poll workers used their bodies to prevent me from watching and observing the ballot counting process. Again, like I said in the beginning, it just seems like the normal operations in Detroit were just terrible from the beginning. I mean, some of these show potential fraud. I mean, obviously it would have to be corroborated, but you know, the way that the media has treated Donald Trump for the past 4 years, a lot of these people hate Donald Trump, and I don't think it's far-fetched to assume that, like was previously stated, people would open a ballot box and see ballots of Donald Trump and smirk and, you know, say, oh, and look down upon the people that voted for Donald Trump. That is not far-fetched at all. I'm sure that happened many times. That's why I don't think it's that far-fetched to assume that a lot of these people, out of their own hatred, would be willing to commit voter fraud. I don't think that that's out of their own possibility at all. Skip that one. Braden. I experienced intimidation countless times, persistent lies from some table supervisors and managers regarding rules that prohibited me from doing my job, and threats of assault. I was escorted from the room by police after about 9 or 10 hours of peacefully doing my job for simply standing my ground at a table with people who were denying me access to see ballots and threatening me. I did not resist police in any way and left peacefully. I saw an online note from someone within my GOP network of friends that 35,000 ballots had been received in the middle of the night and that they needed poll watchers on November 4th. I arrived in the late morning to be trained. The first thing I noticed was that one person outside the ballot room entrance had a BLM mask on. She appeared to be doing temperature checks. Once inside, it was apparent that many and probably most tables in the room were hostile towards people with GOP lanyards. I initially worked with an honest table, but after a few hours I moved to another table because we were low on GOP challengers. This is because they kept kicking out GOP challengers, using the police in the room to physically remove them. In fact, early in the afternoon or later morning, someone came into the room, made an announcement, and several people appeared to be removed from the room as the doors were locked and the windows were boarded up with cardboard. I was informed that no GOP people were allowed in and that if we left, we could not get back in. I asked several of the independent lawyers and law students who were acting as challengers, and none of them seemed to believe this to be an issue. So again, it just looks like this guy was just constantly harassed for trying to do his job. The table was counting a stack of about 35 ballots that all appeared to have pink challenge stickers on them. None of these ballots appear to be in the digital database of voters, so the people at the table were simply entering names and addresses into the computer with birth dates of 1/1/1900. I personally was able to observe the birth dates on the computer. There were also actresses' names which I could not verify because I wasn't allowed close enough to the table for long enough to compare anything. I told the table I was challenging every one of these ballots. They laughed and said I can't just do that. I then noticed that at least one of the ballots and envelopes was mismatched based on the numbers. I waited to see if the table checker at, I believe, Station 2 would catch this, and he did not. So I spoke up, requested that the ballot be reviewed as /challenged. I could not see any political affiliation information on the ballot, including voting, just the numbers of the envelope and ballot. So again, just terrible operations. This looks interesting. As a final note, I find it odd that throughout the day and night I saw a few dozen military ballots be counted. Although I cannot provide specific numbers or names, I can estimate that at least 80% of the military ballots I saw were straight ticket Democrat, or simply had Joe Biden's name filled in on them. I had always been told that military personnel tended to be more conservative, so this stuck out to me as the day went on. Well, Braden, this is a new America. Not all military members are conservative anymore. So I'm going to skip this guy here. Jesus. How can you even read that? What is this word? And jeez, guy. Okay. Christopher Shornack. Another poll challenger. I observed ballots that were not in the electronic log or the paper poll log. These would be considered spoiled ballots. I observed these ballots be counted. I observed the poll worker attempt to match the voter to the paper log. When she was unable to make the match, she would put the spoiled ballots into a separate pile and go away from the counting board for a while. She would return approximately 20-30 minutes later and return the spoiled ballots to the pile of ballots to be counted. Okay. I observed this same poll worker do the same process over many tables and over many hours. I attempted to challenge these ballots to the supervisor and was told, "We are not talking to you. You cannot challenge this." Classic. I went back and spoke to the attorney of the Election Integrity Fund and was instructed to challenge. After much opposition, I was finally able to log challenges. Ballot number 7909 was reassigned to ballot 0976 at County Board 88 at 11:35 a.m. The ballot number did not match the electronic record. The voter's name was redacted. Another poll challenger, Abby, we saw up there, also observed this challenge, so now we have a little bit of corroboration. Ballot 5748 reassigned to ballot 505, did not match. The ballot book or electronic record. Tried to make challenges, it was denied. There was a stack of at least 40 ballots that could not be authenticated with the ballot book, but was told they would not be challenged because they just had to be counted. I observed that the military ballot duplication process was only performed by 2 Democrats rather than 1 Democrat and 1 Republican. Okay. These all seem to be down the same line, as I've said. Just terrible operations. So, I raised my hand to challenge. This is Colleen. I raised my hand to challenge and get an attorney over there, and the woman who I assumed was in charge of the table started yelling at me and telling me I can only challenge something that is on the computer screen. They were finding several ballots that were scanned, but they wouldn't allow me to see the pages they were looking through to confirm the name was on there. After being called several derogatory names by the entire table, there was a girl videotaping it, even though video was not allowed. A man came over to me and told me he was my attorney. Then they started screaming that 2 Republicans cannot be at the same table. Called the police, and the police escorted him out to loud cheers of all the workers. Then she told me she was calling the police on me because I told them they had to stop the count. I told her that I did not say that, but only told her, the supervisor, to have them stop the count because I was challenging. She told her table to continue counting votes. Then she said that I didn't intimidate her, to which I replied that she didn't intimidate me either. Uh-oh. So, again, these people... I mean, I couldn't imagine what it would have been like to be a GOP challenger in that place. I'm sure it was terrible. And again, just terrible operations. Run terribly. I mean, come on. There's rules and there's election standards for a reason. And, you know, none of these are going to make up the difference between the votes Donald Trump is lacking to win, obviously. But it's just pointing out how fucking ridiculous this is to begin with. The fact that these people even have to deal with this. It just goes to show you how partisan the left is. I mean, cheering that people are being escorted out by police just because they have GOP lanyards. I mean, is it worth demonizing someone because of their political affiliations? This is all only brought on because of the media. I mean, who else can you blame for that? Constantly, every day, telling you that Donald Trump is, the reincarnation of Hitler, which obviously he's not. So here's Cynthia. Let's see what she has here. Election workers sitting at the circle of tables for table 21 refused to speak to me, only occasionally stating that I should move away or that I was too close. No one would tell me their names. One of them invited me to sit near him at his workstation, but the others quickly admonished him, leaving me sitting in the aisleway. Election worker in position number 1 slit the open envelope. Position 2 verified the ballot number. Position 3 would pull out the inner envelope containing the ballot and re-verify the name and ballot number. Position 4 opened the ballot, removed the perforated top, reviewed the ballot. Position 5 flattened the reviewed ballots and assembled them in bundles of 50 for actual processing. Over the course of time, I was trying to keep track of ballot issues that were identified, but I couldn't see what was going on, so I eventually left my aisle seat and started walking around the election workers performing their jobs in a circle of tables. Okay, here we go. Some of the irregularities that I recorded were as follows. Denise Brooks didn't sign the envelope or ballot. Her ballot was processed. Didn't sign, processed. Ballot numbers didn't match, processed anyway. Numbers on envelope and ballot did not match. White tape was placed on this ballot. This ballot was processed through the ballot counter. Didn't sign the ballot or envelope. Ballot was counted. Stephen Scott, born in 1929, was not a registered voter. His ballot was processed anyway. Okay. On the 11 occasions irregularities were identified, those ballots were not segregated. On a number of occasions, the supervisor directed that some of the flagged ballots be returned to the election worker in position 3, who was instructed to place white tape over some portion of the flagged ballot. I could not identify what specific information was covered by the tape. Probably what would ever get it would make it so that it wasn't counted, I assume. Yeah, as she says. There was a box for rejected ballots on one of the tables, but no ballots were ever placed into the box. Okay. The supervisor instructed the worker in position 3 not to use the rejection box because the process for dealing with flagged or irregular ballots had changed. Okay. To my surprise, all of the 268 ballots reviewed by the workers at Table 21 were electronically processed and only 4 were rejected. Based on the irregularities that were identified by the election workers, I had expected that at least 11 would be rejected. Okay. David Langer arrived at the TCF Center, was prohibited entry, told to wait, kept door closed, waited until 10:30 p.m. when returned home. Maybe this... I don't know. Okay, yeah. Just a couple hours. Well, many hours later. I don't know why he waited that long. He waited 10 hours to go inside. Okay, David. What do you got? There was a bin marked problem ballots, and I asked the table captain where those ballots were going. The table captain stated that those ballots were going to be further looked at. I asked if I could get the numbers of those ballots, and the table captain stated that he would only allow me to get the number of the top ballots because he wasn't going to allow me to slow the process down. Okay? The table captain, George, stated that there were 32 problem ballots. David said he wanted to challenge those ballots. George refused. I proceeded to write an incident report and handed it off to the Michigan Republican Party. After a lengthy break, the poll workers returned to begin counting the overseas FSD ballots. On 2 separate occasions, I witnessed a poll worker make a mistake while duplicating a ballot. The poll worker set the invalid ballots aside. The table captain brought 2 new ballots, and the poll workers began duplicating the ballots, but did not properly secure the 2 spooled ones. I repeatedly asked where those spooled ballots would go. George had no answer. I witnessed the poll worker manually enter 6 of these ballots into the system and assign each one a fictitious birth date. Since the poll workers were moving so quickly, I was able to capture just one name. Yeah, we've seen... Oh, boy. Oh. Okay, yeah, I can't read that. This looks like another incident of GOP challenger being yelled at, not being allowed to challenge ballots, which seems to be pretty much regular for all of these people. So Emily here, she was trained. Phineas says there were more than 1 Democrat volunteer at a table. Within the first hour, I observed poll workers duplicate a ballot. During the process, 2 workers used their bodies to block the duplication process. We've heard that, like, I don't know, in every other affidavit that I've read so far. On numerous occasions, I was told I could only stand at the screen while Democrat observers were permitted to move freely around the table. When I asked a question about why a ballot was being placed in a particular box, I was told I was not allowed to talk to the poll worker and did not receive an answer. You know, as sad as this is, the way these people were treated, I mean, you know, there's no, and I hate to use this word, there's no definitive evidence that fraud was taking place. I mean, you can get conspiratorial and say that it was, and there's no way you would know with the way these fucking people were acting. You'd have no idea. Have no idea. And my personal opinion, I guarantee you they were doing some fishy shit. Guarantee it. Why else would they act this way? Let's see what else we got here. Another person who was treated poorly. Another person who was treated poorly. Another person talking about poll or ballot counters wearing BLM masks and other political markings. So let's go. I don't feel like reading the rest of these, to be completely honest with you. So let's go to this article by The Blaze here. Leon Wolf kind of details a lot of what I was talking about. I don't think he got as specific as he should have, but we will read through these. So I believe we read this one. We got to this one. Okay. We did not get to either of these. Okay. Michael Casson, who identified himself as an independent poll watcher, said that he made 6 challenges to ballots that were not recorded in the log. A handful of other affiants raised similar contentions, although some of their challenges are just by the way they are described, things could not be challenged. Okay, we got that far. Patricia Rose alleged that she was that she witnessed a poll worker attempt to run a batch of 50 ballots through a machine 4 times due to the machine jamming. According to her affidavit, the ballot stack she was feeding in kept getting jammed. Rather than stop and go seek the assistance of a supervisor or technical support person, she removed the remaining ballots in the feed tray and kept taking the scanned ballots off the top feed and adding them back to the stack. Nice. This allegation was repeated regarding a different batch by Glenn Scitek. Okay, so that's happened twice. Multiple affiants claimed signature verification was not being done. We read that. Whitney Myers claimed that on the street in front of the department, I witnessed workers with Detroit elections aprons on, collecting ballots from cars. I witnessed multiple drivers in cars drop off multiple ballots, including more ballots than people in the car. Myers did not explain how she arrived at this conclusion or whether she brought it to anyone's attention at the time. She also indicated that she saw a worker accept at least one ballot after the polls closed at 8 p.m. She also alleged that an unnamed individual placed ballots, did not specify or estimate how many, into one of the ballot drop boxes after 8 p.m. before the box could be locked. So, I'm losing my voice here. Too many affidavits. So as you can see, kind of what I expected personally. Just goes to show you that that operation in Detroit is trash, for lack of a better term. So we'll watch this closely. Let me know what you think. Read through them yourself. And again, just keep in mind that these are signed affidavits. These people are signing under law that what they saw or what they think they saw is valid. Keep that in mind. Anyways, like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.